We'll go ahead and get started with the September 24th, 2024 meeting of the Board of Waterworks Trustees. First on our agenda today is the consent agenda, which includes minutes of the August 27, 2024 Board of Waterworks Trustees meeting, the minutes of the September 3rd, 2024 Finance and Audit Committee meeting, the minutes of September 10th, 2024 Planning Committee meeting, our financial statements, list of payments for August 2024, the summary of CEO approved expenditures in excess of $50,000, and the next meeting date of October 29th, 2024. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second. Is there anything Ted or others would like to pull out of that consent agenda?
Nothing for me, Andrea, unless there are questions.
Okay. Not hearing any. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. On to public comment period. Do we have any members of the public, either here in the room or online, that wish to speak? I don't see any here. And none online. Okay. And we'll close the public comment period. Before we move into action items, I don't want to steal thunder if you were going to include what I'm about to say in your director comments, but I think it would be appropriate to call attention to it at the very beginning here as we jump into all of the work that this utility does day in, day out. I think it's important that we take time to celebrate that. Not only do we know that we do it well, but now nationally, internationally, we're recognized as going above and beyond and doing it well. Tell us more.
Indeed, Andrea, I think I appreciate the bringing it up here, because I think so often we are buried in the day-to-day and have our head down and we're working so hard. We forget to recognize that we do a lot of things really well across the utility and in every department. And so this year, recognizing that that was the case, we took the opportunity to highlight many of those things in an application that we submitted to AMWA, which is the Association of Metropolitan Water Agencies. It's an association of the largest water utilities in the country. And AMWA reviewed our application and did indeed award Des Moines Waterworks a gold award for excellence in utility management. And they notified us a couple of weeks ago, but that was embargoed until yesterday. And so today is the day that we can announce that we have, as a utility, been awarded AMWA's Gold Award for excellence in utility management, which is a big deal. Something that all of our employees should be proud of, because it literally gives you 15 categories and you have to describe your management, your performance in every one of those categories, which covers everyone essentially in the utility and what we do every day. And we were successful, so good for us.
Yeah. Will you guys be celebrating in any way?
You know, we do have some celebrations planned, or some recognition, I would call it. We have shared with all employees an email that just kind of highlighted some of the points that were included in the application. We're planning to recognize it in social media and even do a press release. We wanted to share it here with the board, and then we'll have the opportunity to accept the award at the AMWA conference, which is next month. So yeah,
Great.
Celebrate in those ways.
Fantastic. Okay. Any other comments at this time? Diving into item 3, our action items. First off, we have the acceptance and approval of termination of Central Iowa Regional Water Commission and of amendment to the 28E agreement to terminate.
Andrea, I think the board is aware that prior to Central Iowa Waterworks, many years ago, we formed a 28E organization the Central Iowa Regional Drinking Water Commission, affectionately referred to as CERDWIC, that met for several years and discussed regional considerations and many things. But now that we've moved past that and have formed Central Iowa Waterworks, it's time to retire that organization, and we're going to officially notify the Secretary of State that we intend to terminate that 2080 agreement, and CERDWIC will cease to exist. But in order to accomplish that, we need at least half of the member agencies, which would be 11, to pass a resolution authorizing us to terminate CERDWIC. So we're here today asking for the board's permission to terminate CERDWIC at such time as we receive enough official notifications from the members, from a majority of the members, and then we'll refund the dues that have been paid to each community. Ours will be a little over $12,000, and CERDWIC will cease to exist.
Can I have a motion to authorize the chairperson to execute the acceptance and approval of termination of Central Iowa Regional Drinking Water Commission and the amendment to 28E agreement to terminate?
So, second.
Any questions? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Moving on to item 3B, 28E agreement between Central Iowa Waterworks and the Board of Waterworks Trustees for group health benefit plans.
Andrea, I think the board is also aware that Central Iowa Waterworks initially intends to have a limited number of staff, probably 2 initially. And acquiring health insurance benefits for a staff that size would likely be fairly expensive on a per employee basis. And so Des Moines Waterworks has worked with our insurance carrier, and Rick has kind of drafted up some documents here that would allow for those 2 initial employees to be covered for health insurance under our health insurance program. It'd be the same program, the same plans that we have, the same everything, the same cost. Central Iowa Waterworks obviously would pay the entirety of those costs. And then that's an efficient and effective way for them to receive good quality health care, which is obviously important. It also saves us a little money because we're paying effectively 43% of all of Central Iowa Waterworks costs. So it's a good deal for Central Iowa, and it's a good deal for us, and it ensures that the employees have good quality health care. So we're here asking for authorization to approve a 28E agreement with Central Iowa Waterworks that will allow us to provide those health insurance benefits to their 2 employees.
Can I have a motion to authorize the chairperson and CEO and general manager, board secretary to execute the 28E agreement between Central Iowa Waterworks and the Board of Waterworks Trustees of the City of Des Moines, Iowa, for group health benefit plans?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item 3C is a proposed residential inclining block rate structure. Establish a public hearing as the date of the October 2024 board meeting.
We had a good discussion of this at the committee meeting earlier in the month here, but just to refresh and make sure everyone's on the same page, currently Des Moines Waterworks has a declining block rate structure that covers all of our rate classes, be it residential, commercial, industrial. So typically our residential customers don't get into the declining blocks, but if they use a lot of water, especially seasonally, they can get in to the second block. And as it was described at the committee meeting, that's not an ideal strategy for residential use, especially when we see a lot of seasonal use. So we'd like to move our residential customers to a rate structure that's more appropriate for residential seasonal usage and would send kind of the appropriate signals in terms of equity, conservation, consistency with the norm for rate structures in residential situations here today. So the Iowa code doesn't require us to have a public hearing for rate changes. We typically do not. But because this is not just a change in rates, it's actually a change in the structure. Well, we will move into an inclining rate where the first 2,000 gallons will actually be the lowest cost. The next 7,000 gallons will be a little bit higher cost, and then above that, above 9,000 gallons, it'll be a meaningfully higher cost. Because that's a significant change from what we've done historically, staff believes that we should have a public hearing, make everyone aware that that's the intent. So what we're here to do today is ask the board to establish a public hearing for the date of the October board meeting related to this change in rate structure.
Is there a motion to establish the date of the public hearing as the date of the October 2024 board meeting? And to act on the approval of the 2025 rates and direct staff to publish notice as required by law and set forth in the board policy manual?
So, second.
Which one of these am I gonna use?
That will be next month, and it will be a great question.
All right.
We'll figure out before we get there.
Second question, beyond the public hearing, will we be doing additional communication to the public to share this, and not only share this, but the benefit and the message that we're trying to send with this?
We've talked about actually communicating with the customers that would be most affected by this. We actually have very few residential customers, a couple, 300, something like that. We've talked about even actually sending individual letters to them so that they'll be aware that they may be moving into an inclining block rate structure. Beyond that, our publication of this change would be more from a perspective of newsletters, social media posts, that kind of thing.
Mhm.
But we have not talked about communication beyond that.
That's, and I was thinking newsletter, social media, that line, because overall, it's sending a message of resource conservation. So, and I think that's a good message that we should make sure everyone knows that we are striving for even beyond the ones that will be impacted the most.
Yeah, we'll certainly plan to have that kind of communication on just kind of a broad scale.
So because this is recorded, the other benefit, and I'm sure you'll get into it when we talk about the finance and audit, is really for the older individuals on fixed income. I believe this is a real benefit to them in the way that the new rate is structured. Is that correct?
Yes, it is correct. And that's because the first 2,000 gallons and a surprisingly large percentage of our customers use 2,000 gallons or less on average. Jamie, I think it was 30%. Roughly a third of our customers use 2,000 gallons or less per month, which is a very small amount. That the rate for that will actually be less than it is today. And then that middle range will be a little higher, such that the average customer uses about 6,500 gallons a month in the city of Des Moines. Their bill will be essentially the same as it is today. And then only customers who use more and significantly more will see a difference. And if customers who use 9,000 gallons or less, the difference will be very small, $1 maybe a month. But once they get above 9,000, if they go to 20, 30, 40, 50, some customers use over 100,000 gallons a month. There'll be a meaningful change in the cost, and we'll want to communicate that to them.
Thank you.
I think it will be good. It was interesting when we were doing the finance and audit committee, I was literally pulling up my bill, and I don't use a ton of water, I just fell just under that 2,000 gallons a month, but I had not realized that like my actual water usage was like $10 or $11 of an $88 bill, you know, so it's like, I think it in theory will be helpful. Will it really move the needle? But I think more towards the conservation efforts is probably really what we're targeting here. Making sure we're using the water for necessary uses and pricing it for differently for discretionary.
So I'm confused about the number that we think is over 9,000, because I thought it was, I read somewhere it was 3,000, it's 300. Where did I get
No,
that?
it is in the thousands.
Yeah,
No,
so it's
spoke.
not. It's not 300.
Yeah, sorry.
So. The concern I have here is, how do we get notice to people so they can come and, talk to us about this? I think. You know, we want to be able to, educate them on what we're doing and why we're doing it and why there was that cutoff point and, but I don't want this to hit people next summer when they're watering and they get a bill, cause it's a significant amount.
For the largest irrigators. it is.
For the largest. Irrigators, and I don't wanna be hearing from them then, I want them to know. What it is that we're doing, so I don't know how we go about doing that. But it's not enough just to have a public hearing and put it on our agenda.
Well, we could talk about how we might communicate that.
We could talk about a bill statement message or maybe an insert.
Do we have time to do that?
I can't answer that. You can look at it.
You know.
A bill message wouldn't be, as big of a deal as an insert.
Yeah.
So I can talk to Laura and some social media, of course.
Yeah.
I don't know the timing of the newsletter. That might be too late to do that for the hearing. We'll of course make sure we do plenty of notice and, as I said, send letters to those who are going to incur the greatest change in those higher levels.
Is that in the hundreds?
I think it's that that 3,000,
3,000.
yeah. We had 20% of our customers, 4% of our customers using 20% of our water in a high usage situations. So we've got some heavy irrigators.
Yeah, and that's not right, cause that's driving the peak.
Would it be possible to send a separate letter to those 3,000-ish customers and say, hey, we're gonna have a public hearing about this and that might affect you?
Would be a cost to that, but we could.
Would there be an opportunity? I mean, there's a lot of benefits to this. Whether it be the fixed income, benefit, the conservation benefit, is there any ability to get some earned media to not only make people aware, but also to explain those benefits at the same time, so we can also be managing the response, when we do get any pushback?
Possibly, yeah. Unfortunately, Melissa is
Yeah.
not here today. But we can ask her that next week. Can work on that.
I mean, that might be the quickest way to get it out there in a lot of, in front of people over an insert or a newsletter or anything to that extent.
Yeah, I'm certainly getting the message that we want to communicate more now as we're having this discussion to folks who might be impacted, and let us give some thought to how we can most effectively do that.
I think there's also a little bit of maybe two types of communication here, which is one, the notice of the public hearing and that we're going to be making a decision. I don't know if we're necessarily gonna have somebody come up and change the board's mind, and at least given the opportunity, which we by law have to do it anyways. But then also just the making sure people know ahead of time before they start watering, so people, at least if we're stuck with the bill, we communicated that this is the new rate structure and that it is different than it was in the past, so they aren't surprised at least.
Andrea,
Yes.
I know we couldn't do it before the next board meeting when we have the public hearing, but on our Mid-American bills where it tells you how you are doing in relation to your neighbors for energy consumption, I think that's a very nice way to say, are you conserving energy at the right times of the day? I wonder if we could use that as a model. And again, it can't be done by the end of by our meeting next time, but if you're talking about 4%, the customers use 20% of the water, that's a small number of customers. And if we could do something to just make them aware, so that they would know, oh my goodness, I didn't realize that I'm such a consumer of water. Just
Mhm.
as an idea.
That Mid-American thing is outsourced and it is expensive to do.
You would know, I mean, you would know from your utility board. How did they do that?
Well, they contracted with this firm called Power
Mhm.
that does that and does the inserts and is able to get the data. It's great to do that. You know, one thing I was thinking is if we're talking about those customers that we had the presentation on the flume,
Mhm.
that perhaps with those customers, we make a flume available. They'd have to pay for it, but if they're using that much water and paying for it, they could probably pay the $100 and say, we'll work with them to figure out, make sure that your irrigation system is properly set, if that's what you're gonna do it, and that you're, not watering your sidewalk and all those kinds of things, and maybe that would be a good message with them, saying we're changing our rate structure to make it more equitable for everybody. But we understand that this is gonna impact you, and we wanna work with you as our customers to, if you, maybe there's some decisions they can make on landscaping, or how they irrigate, or how often they irrigate, that we could help them.
I think that would be a good message for the second letter, once it's approved, and then I do notify, directly notify those customers that it will be changing.
Yeah, but, it's just really hard to reach people when you're doing these kinds of public on rate changes, but at least if we make the attempt and people come later and say, well, I didn't know anything about this, we can say, well, here's what we did to try to reach people.
Right. And I think that's the most important part, is that we try as much as we can. And the responsibility be put on us rather than others, but the customers, to figure it out. Okay, any other thoughts or questions? Well, there is a motion and a second on the table. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? On to item D is to award the 2024 multiple facility roof repairs.
Andrew, we have a number of facilities across the campus that need roof repairs. Some of them are listed there: the Saylorville Water Treatment Plant, the McMullen Plant, Fluid Drive, Polk County Pumping Station. Some of them have a single repair, some of them have multiple repairs, but we package those together, bid them out. We received 2 bids, which you can see there. Both of them below the engineer's estimate, and we are recommending that the board award the roof repair project to Academy Roofing and Sheet Metal.
Okay. Can I get a motion to award the 2024 multiple facilities roof repairs project to Academy Roofing and Sheet Metal Company in the amount of $136,985, and the chairperson and CEO and general manager to execute the contract?
So,
Second.
Any questions? All in favor, say aye.
aye.
Item E is to request authorization for CEO and general manager to execute order number 2 to Des Moines Waterworks Saylorville Water Treatment Plant West Feeder Main Phase 3 project.
Andrew, this is the feeder main project that is ongoing up in the Johnston area. We've had a few challenges, I guess I would say, on the project. They're listed here in some detail. but I'll just highlight them quickly. There was a foundation for an old bridge that was encountered as we were trying to install 72-inch casing pipe under Mulhay Road, which had to be removed. There was a Century Link fiber optic duct that was in the way of that same casing installation. It had to be raised. Storm sewer coordination there at 62nd Street. And the Mid-American substation alignment, where Mid-American actually wanted us to adjust the alignment to stay away from some of their poles. And so engineering and our consultant have worked through all of those challenges with the contractor on the project. Total of those changes is about $226,000, a little over $250,000. We have reviewed all of these changes, or Kyle and his team have actually, with the Technical Advisory Committee for Central Iowa Waterworks, as this is a Central Iowa Waterworks project. And we are here today requesting permission for the CEO to execute change order number 2 on the project.
I'm gonna have a motion to authorize the CEO and general manager to execute change order number 2 to the southwest treatment plant, West Feeder Main Phase 3 project in the amount of $226,210.66.
Second,
How far off of our timeline are we?
You're still on track.
Okay,
Goal having that heat and service before heat pump is next.
'cause I'm assuming this is the one near Lower Beaver. Yep. And so all of those folks are aware of all these, the timeline, but we're still on track. Okay. Any other questions? Okay, motion second on the table, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Item F is the acceptance of the Maffett East Feeder Main Valve Vault.
Andrea, in 2021, Moines Waterworks entered an agreement with West Moines Waterworks to construct a control valve that would help us ensure that we could get water to all of the data centers that were being constructed in the West Des Moines system, being fed by Des Moines Waterworks system. In April of 2023, the board authorized a contract with WRH to build that valve vault, and the work has now been completed. Final contract price was a little bit more for 4 small change orders totaling $28,000 on the project, but the project is now complete. Again, this is it's a regional project essentially, but West Des Moines Waterworks have agreed to pay for it, and we've shared it with the technical committee. We're here today to ask permission from the board to accept the contract completed by WRH in the amount shown here, about $1.3 million.
Okay. So I need a motion to accept the Maffett East Feeder Main Valve Vault 2 contract completed by WRH Inc. in the amount of $1,308,550.31.
So moved.
second,
Any questions? All in favor, say aye.
aye.
Item G is the 2024 Southeast Connector Pleasant Hill meter pit.
Andrea, in August, we requested permission to solicit bids for construction of a new meter pit. The meter pit that will measure flows into Pleasant Hill. The existing pit is being impacted by the Southeast Connector project. We had a number of contractors take out plans. We had 5 contractors submit bids, as you can see. The engineer's estimate for the project was 150,000. The low bid from On Track Construction LLC is 130,500. Funds for this project will actually come from the Pleasant Hill Water System Fund, which is a fund that we collect through their rates and hold on their behalf. This is a public hearing, so I'm probably going out of order here, but
You're good. So, with that in mind, I'm gonna go ahead and open the public hearing for comments from the public concerning the project's form, contract, plans and specifications and estimated cost. Now, do you have any comments or have you received any public?
we have not received any comments from the public.
Okay. And there's no one online we've established to provide comments. So, I will go ahead and close the public hearing. And, with that, look for a motion for adoption of form of contract plans and specifications and estimated cost.
So moved.
And, do I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And do we have an analysis of the bids?
Yes, we received 5 bids as indicated here in the memo. Engineer's estimate was 150,000. The low bid from On Track Construction is 130,500, and we would recommend that the board authorize award to On Track Construction.
Do we need to add that there's no other facility of the kind? Do we need to make that motion?
The board doesn't need to take action on that. It'll be noted in the minutes that we've got that certification that there is no other facility available.
Just didn't want to have to redo it later.
Right. Thank
Very
you.
good call. One of these days, I will get it right, all in order. With that, analysis and recommendation, I will look for a motion to, approve the CEO and general manager's recommendation in awarding contract of the 2024 Southeast Connector Pleasant Hill Meter Pit Project to On Track Construction LLC in the amount of $130,500 and authorize the chairperson and CEO and general manager to execute the contract. So,
Nope, we're second.
okay. Any questions regarding this information? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item 3F, which is also a public hearing. This is the 2023 Des Moines Water Main Replacement Contract 5. So I'll go ahead and open the public hearing and ask for comments from the public concerning the project's form, contract, plans, specifications, and estimated cost.
We haven't received any public comments to date.
Okay, none online. Then I will go ahead and close the public hearing and ask for a motion to, for adoption of the form of contract, plans, and specifications and estimated cost.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Can we have an analysis of the bids?
Absolutely. Andrea, this is water main replacement in the city of Des Moines on the 6 streets listed there in the memo. Again, we had a number of contractors take plans out on this project. We received 4 bids as detailed there in the memo. The engineer's estimate for the project was just over $2.9 million. The low bid from On Track Construction is just over $2.4 million. So we would recommend that the board award the 2023 Des Moines Water Main Replacement Contract 5 to On Track Construction.
Okay, I'm seeking a motion to approve CEO and general manager's recommendation awarding contract of the 2023 Des Moines Water Main Replacement Contract 5 project in the amount of $2,425,522 to On Track Construction LLC and authorize the chairperson and CEO and general manager to execute the contract. Do I have that motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion or questions on this information?
I have just an overall question regarding bids.
Mhm.
And I think this one is a good example. The high bidder, we have awarded contracts to before. Well, all of these we have in the past. Three of them are grouped together very closely, and then there's one that's way out there. I'm just curious, is our process one that a bidder might be too busy and so they bid it extremely high, but they want to remain on our bid list? Or why do we see such a wide range from a bidder that we've awarded before? And it's not about this specific one, I'm just kind of more curious.
Yeah, I think, when contractors are really busy, they will put a bid together, but they'll bid it high to account for the fact that they have to do some additional work or move around or accommodate their busy schedule. I think on the flip side, if contractors are not busy and they really need work, they bid it low,
Mhm.
trying to get it, so
Sure.
it may be the case that we're seeing a situation where we have some contractors who really need work and one who really doesn't. It isn't a question of staying on our bidders list because we pretty much let anybody bid, right, whether they've bid recently or not.
All right.
But it is interesting and it makes it challenging to do the estimating because not only do you have to know what the work is worth, but you have to know how busy everybody is and how aggressive they're going to be. And so, our estimate was a little bit higher, but not the highest. But I don't know, Kyle, Lindsay, would you add
No, I
anything
think
to
you're
that?
exactly right. I think that just sometimes if they're busy, they'll throw a number because they'll have to do some shuffling and staffing, but we don't know for sure. But I would say that's probably good.
Thank you.
My only other question too is just, from my knowledge, how old would you say that the main that we're replacing on these are?
I don't
One of
know.
them are in that fifties vintage, that cast iron, remember when we did the presentation? And we see the higher breaks and that range
Yeah,
of
they're,
height.
okay,
So I would guess a lot of them are that. They might even be some older. So we're doing several. There's like, if we're doing Port Avenue, that's the one that had the big break there by Water Street. And then we're doing 6th and Park, which are both downtown. And then we got some on the northwest side. So this was the northwest quadrant, if you remember, we're kind of trying to package them together. So then there's some older ones there. We did some not that long ago, and this is kind of finishing that up.
So Lindsay, would you say downtown Mains are older?
That's why I said
1900?
older,
Yeah,
yeah.
1900s vintage, 1900. And the ones that are further out, 1940s, 50s.
but presumably like the stuff like Port Avenue is some of the original or close to original. Or at least from 1900s, I guess I don't know what they did before then, but.
Right. Down in the core of downtown like that, there's some old stuff.
Yeah.
Near the courthouse, there's still some 1880s sort of pipe. So I don't know this section
Yeah,
of Port
I
Avenue
remember.
exactly. I don't know exactly, but
It's old.
downtown is the oldest, and then as the city kind of moved out, 40s, 50s. It's kind of a range there, really, this time,
Yeah.
this particular contract.
My question is, when we, and on all of this, when we have the staff recommendation, are we still using any sort of that kind of ad hoc selection committee that we did for I can't remember what the project was, that we pulled in various people from departments to provide some feedback on an RFP? Are we still doing that, or do we just kind of look at more from the engineering department?
Well, For a bid like this, for a capital improvement or a public improvement,
Mhm.
we pretty much go with the low bid.
Mhm.
For service contracts, professional services contracts, we're not even allowed anymore to only use bid
Right.
price. And so that's when we'll put together a team and they'll review firm experience, similar projects, the kinds of things
Okay.
that Lindsay has shared with you before. They'll put together a team to review that. That's more of a professional services sort of a project.
Okay,
When we bid public improvements, we generally take the low bid unless there's a reason not to
Right.
take it.
right. Okay, that helps my memory.
Unless
Thank
it's in
you.
the best interest of the waterworks not to take the low bid.
Which we've done.
Yes.
Now, it is interesting to think about, because I think about a recent conversation you and I had, Ted, about the money we received from Central Iowa Waterworks, from regionalization. A lot of that, the lion's share of that money, this board has indicated want to put into projects like this,
Mhm.
replacing water main. I'll be interested to see as the team thinks about that process of, how we're gonna spend that money and the timeline. Whether, to your question, whether there's some benefits of bidding those in bigger bulk and bigger pieces or not. Maybe there won't be, but I'm sure that'll be something that you think about as you time those,
Mhm.
whatever makes sense for the waterworks, but then also how we bid those. There may be kind of almost a multi-year type of project. I mean, if you can plot them out that you're gonna be doing those projects, you might, I don't know, I'll be interested to see what you come back with. There could be some real benefit in binding those together.
Mhm. There'll be a lot of opportunity with that cash flow.
I mean, because you'll know the timing, you'd
Right.
be able to identify the projects. And so you wouldn't necessarily have to piecemeal those out in different bids.
And from
But
the
if you
vendor,
get the bigger package, you might get, other bidders, like some of your bigger bidders, bigger companies. that will-
Well, especially if they knew they could go from one project to the
Right,
next, and
right.
they could schedule it as well. I
Yep.
mean, because we're probably not gonna want to pay it all at one time either. And so there's a benefit for us to do it. So that'll be an interesting process. For nerds who like to do that kind of thing. I'm one of them.
Talking about us?
Yeah, and me.
Name calling.
I put myself in that group.
Okay, anything else? We have, what's happening here? We have a motion and a second on awarding this project. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item 3I is this is different,
It's another public hearing.
but
Yeah.
is it still on track? Okay.
Yeah, they were very successful.
They were very successful. They will be busy. The 2024 Polk County Water Main Replacement Contract 2 public hearing. I will go ahead and open the public hearing and ask for comments from the public concerning the project's form of contract, plans and specifications and estimated cost.
We haven't received any comments to date.
Okay, anybody new jump on yet? Okay, and then I will go ahead and close the public hearing and ask for a motion to approve the form of contract, plans and specifications and estimated cost.
so moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And Ted, can you provide us with an analysis of the bids?
I can, Andrea, this is a project for water main replacement up in Polk County. We received 6 bids on this project. The engineer's estimate was 290,000. And the low bid was submitted by On Track Construction, 244,470. We would recommend that the board award the contract to On Track Construction.
Okay. So with that, I am looking for a motion to award the 2024 Polk County Water Main Replacement Contract 2 project in the amount of $244,470 to On Track Construction LLC and authorize the chairperson and CEO and general manager to execute the contract.
So moved.
Second.
So I feel like this goes straight to your point of seeing On Track receive several of these, or at least a couple of them, wondering if there is any savings in that. We'll have to keep our eyes on that as we move forward. Any other questions or comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. And now we are into our info items. And our board committee reports, starting with the finance and audit.
Well, we kind of already touched upon, our last meeting's subject with the inclining block grade structure, so. I don't know if there's really much of an update beyond that, but it sounds like everyone on the board is in alignment that that's a policy, there's a little bit of is it philosophically the direction that we want to go? It seems like there's generally seems to be of alignment. In our pre-board meeting, we had some discussion around like urban agriculture and some of these groups that are trying to do essential like community gardens on residential lots and how you distinguish that between, irrigation, like, lawn irrigation, and I don't know, there's might be some nuance there that we'll have to work through. That's probably the one instance where I could see there'd be some things where it's like, we want to encourage urban agriculture, but how do we distinguish from a data set that use versus watering grass? So, but I think overall, it's a good positive step, and as we were saying too, I think we're the only or one of the few ones still in communities left with the old structure.
Yeah, I wouldn't say we're the only, certainly, but the trend in the industry is to move towards inclining rates for residential, and it's more than half of the communities use inclining, so we're moving in the direction that the rest of the country is moving.
Yeah.
I missed the meeting because I had my day screwed up. It was Labor Day's fault. But I did have a remedial session, so, and one thing I wanted to point out is this is just residential.
Mhm.
We still have our, commercial rates out there to look at. And I really think that may be, also a surprise to some people, so we'll see how this goes, but we may want to signal people and let them know that we're gonna be looking at this for our commercial customers come next year.
Yeah, I think that could be part of the communication
Yeah.
review. It's always hard to know. It's always hard for me to know how we will connect with those customers. Newsletters are notoriously
I know,
lightly read,
yeah.
but completely understand the point, and we'll be working on that communication effort.
Do other communities have inclining, or have they taken the time to look at commercial rate structures and from that viewpoint, from that lens?
I think so, and I think isn't it the larger communities, Ted, that have the inclining, the West Des Moines and the St.
I don't know about their commercial side, Amy, do you know?
I don't specifically know about the different classes. They either have inclining, which we are proposing to move to,
Or a
or a
special.
uniform rate, which stays the same, and then a separate irrigation rate.
Correct.
Which is probably what most of the commercial and industrial customers are on, and those.
Yeah, that might be an interesting data set to kind of
And did you
collect
say-
on what everybody's doing.
In the commercial sense, oftentimes they have a separate irrigation meter, and that's how we know.
That's right.
Okay. Any other questions or information to share from finance and audit? On the planning committee?
We had a great presentation from a company called Flume. And Kyle kind of led this discussion. I think this is an example of all the work that our staff is doing behind the scenes. But then when they're ready to package it up and bring it to us, as you did, it's just really some innovative and creative things that are going on. And it's a smart water sensor type of system. Where a customer can pay, we're also making an investment in it. But a customer can pay $125. They get $25 back after the installation. But it's just a way to determine real-time data, how the water's being used, if there are additional leaks. Was it 7% or 14%? I'm losing the number of the customers that do it find that there are some kind of leakages.
I think it was 66% find a leak on that, and then, of those that have the flu, they see 14% reduction in
In water.
water use that they're using. So
Yes, so it was just fascinating. Great presentation. I guess the next step is this would roll out sometime in 2025 is the way that it was kind of defined to us, but they were talking about, and you brought up today, Diane, possibly this is how we could have those customers that the 4% that are using 20% of the water involved in this kind of program. They were talking about so that all of us and staff could be aware, maybe we could be kind of a test group, obviously paid for it, but then to be able to articulate it to customers and others. But I loved the suggestion here at the board meeting earlier that maybe this is where we use those heaviest customers too. And if we do have 60% plus those customers that are using it finding water leaks, maybe that's part of where all this water is going. But it was a great presentation. Am I missing anything? You also reported out on the big concert. And I don't know if this is a good time, but I think we were all curious to know as the rain came in, how did it go?
I think the concert went very well. They did have to shorten the length, and they had to play the main event a little earlier because of lightning. Part of their emergency response plan, lightning starts getting close, you do a hard stop, so they had to shorten it up, and so some of the bands didn't get to play, but Slipknot did play their set. I'm happy to report there were no arrests made during the event, and there was very little damage to the park as a result of the rain and things like that. So considering the rain and having 14,000 folks in the park, it was turned out to be very successful.
It seems like the fact that there was the larger stage that was built in the opposite direction of the amphitheater, that kept that sound down a little bit, it seemed to me. Did we get any sound complaints?
I have not heard on that. That would have went through the city, so I did not hear about any sound.
I had a meeting with Chris this morning, and he said that he did not receive any sound complaints, and he took the sound meter out. And I don't know if it was because of the stage, but he said that the noise level was not no different than your neighbor having the radio on.
It wasn't loud. I mean, I didn't hear it in our neighborhood. Now I often hear
Yeah.
some sound, and then we were driving around. We actually went by 3 different times. Not because I was spying, but.
Trying to listen for
And I was,
free.
and I was. It wasn't that loud.
Yeah.
Sue, did you hear?
Nothing on the southwest side. I mean, and I opened up windows because I thought, I want to hear, I want to know what they're going to do with the rain that's coming in. And I heard nothing.
Yeah, it was interesting. It's good. And, again, I don't know, when we had our meeting with those sound experts, maybe as loud as that is, I think when you're in presence, I think maybe that doesn't carry as much as some of other types of music carry.
Could be.
Maybe.
And I think that people are kind of getting used to it, that once in a while there's gonna be a concert and you're gonna hear some sound, but it isn't, I don't think it's loud. I think that they hear it, but I don't think it's that loud, so.
And this music doesn't
Hopeful.
typically have the same driving bass that other music does, and so maybe that's, I don't know, but maybe that's part of it.
I don't know either.
But the great thing about it is the economic impact to our community. I live on the southwest side of Des Moines, went to Hy-Vee, and they call the Slipknot followers maggots. and there were all these maggots. All in black and t-shirts and funny hair, and it was just great.
Yeah.
You know, I thought, these are not people that live here. I mean, they're coming in and renting hotel rooms and
Well,
camping. It was
It came
just
from all over the
wonderful.
country.
I was,
Yes.
Yeah.
I was sharing with Chris in my meeting, Ted and Alec and I had our lunch meeting that Friday, and I met, Nate and Gwen at the botanical garden afterwards. And there were people in there that I had overheard them talking to the registration desk, that they were in town for the Slipknot concert, their first time in Des Moines. And they're here at the botanical garden, and, they was, they were exploring our city.
Yeah.
I love it.
And Waterworks had a role in enabling that to happen here in Des Moines, so that's very cool.
But that's all from planning.
Any other questions or comments for the planning committee? And we can jump into the Central Iowa Waterworks Board.
I can report from that, on that, the summary of what we did at the last meeting was included in your packet, so I think we'd take any questions. Bill Smith at that meeting did a good job of showing us what had been accomplished and what still remains to be accomplished with the January 1 operational date. I think one of the things he said is, we've had light board meetings, we're not going to continue to have light board meetings. We have a meeting tomorrow. At the last board meeting, because there wasn't all that much business that had to be transacted, Nathan came and did a educational session on ASRs. So that's all part of bringing the board up to speed on the facilities. And also, we've been having tours that are available to everyone for that same purpose. We are working through the hiring of the executive director. We have the list has been, we had 44 people apply. We've culled the list for interview purposes. We'll be interviewing the first week in October. With some very, very good candidates. I think that both the headhunter and all of us were really impressed by the quality of the people that we'll be looking at. So, I don't know, Ted, Amy, Sue.
I would offer that Lainey Davison has started as our
Oh.
executive assistant for Central Iowa Waterworks, started on the 16th of the month and is knee deep in board preparation for tomorrow's board meeting already. So welcome.
Mhm.
Yeah, she will be important part of what happens there.
One of the things we're gonna have to look at is where we house. The office for Bill Smith has been here, and I think that's been very helpful, but I don't think that we have the space for,
I don't think
offices
that
or-
space will work long term. We might have to, if there's interest in remaining here, which there's some value
Yep.
to that. And
Yep.
maybe that would be an opportunity that we could explore. But we haven't decided yet. I think we kind of want to get the director on board and see what they think.
I hope that, yeah, in thinking through that, because there is some benefit there, if that is something that is of interest, we can say yes and figure it out,
mhm,
figure the details out later.
right.
Because I do think that would be, great to have, close by with so much of our communications, Melissa still being involved in that. And other benefits of being able to engage directly with some of the folks here that are still tightly connected to, like a communication personnel and looking at the board action items right now. That would have that benefit.
Have you heard, maybe Diane or Sue or Ted or Amy, just anecdotally as new board members have joined the board there, are there any surprises or concerns or things that they've found interesting that they didn't expect?
Yes. Graham, that has been the most eye-opening part of it. I mean, everyone said they wanted to be at the table
Mhm.
to vote. But what we are seeing, what I am seeing is people like Mayor Edwards
Mhm.
that will make a point of talking about the additional cost to our infrastructure because of irrigation in the suburban communities. And when it's coming from someone from
Those communities?
those communities. And at the last meeting, and I'm so glad you brought that up because he said, we heard this at the last meeting, and this goes back to the great presentation that Kyle did. As far as what it's going to cost to add additional capacity. And he said, may we repeat that for the minutes, something to that extent. So yes, it's not just, oh, now we get to vote. There is a real concerted effort in our resources,
Sure.
in keeping our costs down. So that has been very rewarding.
I would say, I think that, it's been really good to have everybody come and tour the
Okay.
facilities.
Yes.
Because they're gonna now be owners and they need to see and understand, but I think that there was there was some surprise expressed on what really great shape our facilities were in, because again, there had
Kind of a
been this
misconception.
misconceptions about, we put money into our facility all the time.
Mhm.
And-
That's exactly what I was gonna share, Diane, because that's so true. It's come up more than once that, wow, these facilities are impressive and in great shape.
Yeah.
Also, just a recognition of what it takes to produce the water. And, Kyle and Nathan have done the tours of Saylorville and McMullen respectively. And in just a very competent, professional way that they elicited a lot of trust and I think respect for what it takes. In the past, they haven't had that front row seat.
Right.
Now they have it and they can see the plays a little more clearly.
You feel the same way, Amy?
I do.
Financial?
What was running through my head is really what Ted hit on last, and that is, the wholesale customers have jumped into the passenger seat of their car and we've driven them.
Mhm.
And now, they are looking under the hood and understanding how we run and how we operate. And even at a staff level, the technical committee, not just the representatives, but we are educating and informing and it's been eye-opening, I think, and it's leading to better, I should say better decisions, but more involvement in those decisions, which was the whole benefit.
Right.
So, yeah, it's been good so far.
I mean, we all talked about this and I think that's why so many of us kept our eye on that ball. Is that not only were we gonna share risk with them and not have that on our ratepayers, but having more people around the table informed in that decision-making process are going to be side benefits. And, you talked about irrigation, but, as that board has to deal with the threats to our water sources.
Yeah.
Whether it be from climate change or pollution or what have you, that too is going to be helpful because they're going to see that there aren't simple solutions there. And so I'm glad to hear it. I keep thinking those and taking notes on that, because I think that's important for us to hear that type of feedback. And there may be something that comes along where it's not good news, they're actually, something surprises them in a bad way. Let us know about that too. I don't think that's the case. I mean, so far, I think everyone has done a great job of educating and bringing people up to speed. And I'm really pleased to hear that they are, have noticed how well-maintained the facilities are that they are buying.
Graham, another thing that happened, and again, compliments to Kyle for jumping on this, but he was giving a report of the technical committee and all of the communities that have been involved and the feedback that we've received and how that is being used as we look at future growth. And I noticed I was looking at Mayor Clark, Courtney Clark from Waukee, and she had this kind of troubled look on her face or questioning look on her face. And I think she was wondering, are we at that table? Are we at technical? And so I went over to Kyle and said, whoever's from Waukee, would you mind speaking to Courtney Clark? And he went up and said, we just wanted to let you know, here's who's been representing you. And she was like, oh, great. And it was such a sense of relief and appreciation, I think, for all this work that this staff has been doing for a long time to keep everyone informed. And so thank you for reaching out to her, because I don't think some of these elected officials know how involved their own staffs have been.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So
Yeah, that's interesting.
Kyle, would you talk for a minute about the report that's coming up? Is it next month? And then, I mean,
Yeah, the
that's
next
gonna
few
be,
months, we're working to finalize the report, and that is to evaluate, that report's evaluating for the next 25 years, what will the water demand be in each of the cities or communities? And then what additional infrastructure, being treatment plants or transmission mains, that need to be installed, and what timeline those need to be installed to meet the customer demand for each of those communities. So it's gonna be a very important report. There'll be a roadmap for the next 25 years of what we need to do. And a little spoiler alert, it is gonna be heavy on the front end side, trying to get some transmission mains in and things like that to meet the growth that's happening. So a lot of information to come in the next.
But see, here again, a great, this is why we regionalize, right? I mean, before, we would have made a lot of those decisions, and there probably would have been some complaining from our wholesale customers about whether this was fair, whether the timing right, whether we were doing it right. But now that, they're gonna see a report like this, and they're gonna really be at the table to make those decisions. The decisions may end up being the exact same ones that would have been made if they had come to this board. But the fact that they're all partners in that, I think it's fantastic.
And I hope this board feels you're well represented. Diane's doing an amazing job on the executive committee as they search for the CEO and general manager for the utility. I've been assigned on finance and audit, and we've just selected our accounting firm. And I've also been appointed to the nominating committee for officers for next year. So we are trying to stay as involved as possible, and anytime we're asked or volunteers are being sought out by the group, we want to be involved and part of that decision making.
and of course, our staff has been really continues to be really involved. I do want to say I see one issue that we really need to just know that it's there, and that is that we're going to be doing a lot of investing, and it's going to have to hit rates. And I get concerned that when it starts to hit rates in a way that people start to notice, and it's hard to tell in that combined bill, but that they're gonna say, oh, they just regionalized and formed this new organization, and now,
What do you mean by investing? What are,
well, Saylorville and.
These transmission lines.
Yeah, on these transmission lines, and that will all hit rates. And it's a magnitude,
But
what these new investments are as compared to what they have historically paid for water.
right,
Those investments were coming though, and this is
That's
the
right.
thing that's
Absolutely,
hard to
absolutely.
explain
Yeah,
to the average ratepayer, but those investments were coming anyway.
Right.
And the other option was for us to make the investment
oh,
and
absolutely.
then
yeah,
try to
Yeah,
recover our costs by selling water. And a big part of why we regionalized is that there was so much investment and they needed to be made, and we are not the ones who are growing. And so compared to what the option would have been, this is way better.
Yeah,
And we know that and we struggle with how to communicate that, but and I think we need to be trying to communicate that in terms of benefits of Central Iowa Waters to
Right.
us. And, Graham's
Right.
mentioned several times, we need to have a plan for how we're gonna invest that money. But we need to be clear that, we're on a path. There is no path that results in no rate increases.
That's right.
There is no
That's right.
path. Things are getting more expensive. We are gonna grow. We need to rehabilitate and continuously upgrade all of our facilities. There is no path that includes no rate increases, but the path we are on today will be financially more attractive than the path we would have been on if we had to make all that investment and try to recover that.
I'm just saying, how
Yeah,
people put
absolutely,
things
Diane.
together
You're
in their
100%.
heads, like,
Right.
oh.
Yep, you're 100% right. And I
Yeah.
think,
Yeah.
I think that we do need to spend some time thinking about that and explaining it. And doing what Ted says, I mean, they understand that one of the benefits here, and this is hard to articulate to people that are unfamiliar, but we now share that risk
Right.
because of others are investing. And that's really good for our ratepayers. We're not taking the risk. Our ratepayers aren't taking our risk alone, but your point is not lost, and that is we're gonna have to over communicate, I think, as these things go, because that could very easily become a talk at the coffee shop is, oh, regional development happened, and now we're still taking it.
Yeah.
Yep.
And Diane and I are so proud of our staff. I mean, I've mentioned what Kyle has done, but the credibility that Ted has when he speaks and, when Amy speaks and the things that she says and being our interim treasurer, if you will, and handling all of the finances, there's a real increased appreciation of what we have here at Des Moines Waterworks. And as we transition and we have a new executive assistant for CIWW, I do have to say Caitlin has done an amazing job
Yeah.
in the minutes, in the notes, in attending the meetings. All of the communities have said to me, we're taking her notes that we receive, and that's what we're sharing at the city council level because she does such a thorough job. So thank you, and thank you for helping with the training, but you've done a wonderful job, so thank you.
Got a big job, Lanny.
Best trainer.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, anything else with Central Iowa Waterworks? Botanical Garden Board.
I don't have anything new to report.
All right, there is the quarterly update in our board packet. But beyond that, I'll shift into Des Moines Waterworks Park Foundation.
We talked about Slipknot.
We already
Yeah.
talked about Slipknot, Knot Fest, and I don't remember if I mentioned at our last board meeting, but I can say now that the new executive director has officially started. Chris Birch, formerly of IMT, formerly of Principal Charity Classic. I think that he has been a huge asset in kind of taking us from these initial startup of the foundation and getting our feet under us to kind of more of the detailed moving us forward into the next version of the Park Foundation. I know he's had a chance to meet with some of the staff, and I know he hopes to meet with many others of the utility staff and board as things move forward into kind of the winter and the quieter months as he kind of kickstarts 2025. We have a Oktoberfest this weekend. At our last foundation meeting, things were looking good from a cash flow standpoint. So think good things to come, closing out 2024 and moving into 2025. Pat, do you have anything you want to add?
Nope, I don't have anything to add, Andrea.
Great. Any questions?
So what's involved in Oktoberfest?
Oktoberfest used to be on Court Ave, and if
Right.
you're familiar with that, and they've just relocated it over here. So I'm assuming Alec might have a little bit of a better idea of what they're anticipating, but lots of different craft beer stands.
Music and games.
Beer.
Friday and
Lots of
Saturday.
Friday and Saturday,
yeah.
not Sunday, just Friday,
Friday,
Saturday.
Saturday.
Polka dancing, Sam shared with us that he got a phone call asking if the floor was going to be slippery enough for polka dancing. I don't know what's involved.
And it is a ticketed event.
Yes.
So,
It is a ticketed event. Any other questions? IMT marathon, it's probably the other next big thing coming through the park. With that, Ted,
Well, Andrea, we've touched on a lot of the things I was gonna comment on already, Not Fest and the successful event there. The AMWA Gold Award, we'll be continuing to promote that and, taking some pride in that and hoping to help our staff understand how much everyone contributed to that because of the broadness of that application and all the areas that we had to describe. I will also advise or maybe warn the board that our October meeting is going to be packed full of a lot of things. Our normal processes from, rates, budget, that kind of perspective, but also a lot of Central Iowa Waterworks action items. And so it's going to be a big agenda, confident. A couple of things I want to point out to the board, the safety memo here today gives a great example of how we've been able to track our employee safety training and ensure that everyone is getting that training. This is something that we implemented a couple of years ago. We used to assign training, but we weren't good about making sure that people were able to attend the training and complete it, but we're doing a much better job on that. We have had 6 recordable injuries so far this year, which is obviously more than we'd like to have, but is lower than we've had in some recent years in the past. And so I think it represents that we are doing a better job of ensuring people get the training they need. I also will comment that I think I shared with the board that we were able to fill our distribution trainer position, and I've heard a lot of positive feedback on that. And I won't speak for him, but one of the comments I got positively was from Bill Bluebaugh, who's our union president, and he's here. I think that's been a really positive addition to the staff, an important position. Hopefully we can keep that filled and make good progress there. The community outreach update is in your packet. One of the things there is the tour that there's a picture there of Nathan giving the tour to the Central Iowa Waterworks folks. That was well received, as we've already discussed. And I think that's it for me, Andrea.
I just want to say that I appreciate both this safety memo and the outreach update being included in our board packet. I know it, is that at the end here and doesn't get as much of the spotlight as some of our other action items, but being able to continue to kind of keep tabs on what's going on with our safety trainings and just the overall pulse of safety at the utility as well as the outreach is important. And I appreciate staff taking the time to provide these for our board packet.
Thank you.
Anything else, I guess, for the good of the cause? Otherwise, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.